Thank you for having me this morning. It's an honor to be here. As he mentioned, I live right down the street in Franklin, so it's fun to speak locally. And normally when I get invited to speak somewhere, the purpose of my visit is pretty clear: humor. You see, I have this sarcastic Christian website called stuffchristianslike.net. And on it, I try to clear away the clutter of Christianity so that we can see the beauty of Christ. And the way that I do that is with satire. So I write about some of the funny things we do within faith and within church, things like prayer shot blocks. I don't know if you've ever experienced a prayer shot block. They're rare. They're like this unicorn moment of prayer. But when they happen, it is fantastical. And a prayer shot block happens when somebody in your small group or your Sunday school class or your dorm prays for something that everyone else knows God is not going to be down with. Like the second that prayer request leaves their lips, everyone in the room winces and thinks God is not going to answer that one. He's going to ignore that one. He's probably going to do the reverse of that thing you just asked for. You know, it's a bad dating relationship they're in, or they're changing their major impulsively, or maybe they're in a fight with their parents and they're in the wrong. And so what'll happen is that one of your friends, Mary, will pray, "Lord, please grow my love with Tim. Lead us towards marriage as we get ready to graduate. Grow my dating relationship with Tim." And every one of Mary's friends knows Tim is a punk. He's the worst person on the planet for Mary to be dating right now. So right after Mary prays for her love with Tim, one of her friends will pray, "Lord, please give Mary your gift of clarity. Bless her with patience. Open the eyes of her heart that she might hear what you are trying to tell her." And it's like right as Mary's prayer is floating up to heaven, it gets shot blocked right back down to earth. So that's the kind of stuff I like to write about. I write about crises, though, that are facing the church sometimes too. Crises that I see culturally and inside the body. And one that I know is in Nashville, and I've seen it in LA and Dallas and Chicago, but I think it might have started in Nashville, is called DVS, and that stands for Deep V-Neck Syndrome. That is rocking churches across the country. I don't know if you're infected yet, so I need to give you a few tips just in case you're not. Because there's 5 stages to deep V-neck syndrome. And the first stage is curiosity. You go to church and you see a worship leader, maybe a metrosexual worship leader, rocking a deep V, got tight jeans on, maybe lady jeans, Tom's shoes, a watch that could land the space shuttle, a white belt. Maybe even an unnecessary scarf, which is when you wear a scarf with a short sleeve t-shirt. It's a very confusing message. It's like you're saying, my neck is so cold I need a scarf, but my arms are too hot for sleeves. And you see that and you think, could I rock that too? Could I pull that off? And nobody in your immediate circle of friends loves you enough to say, no, you couldn't. That's stage 1 of deep V-neck syndrome. Stage 2 is your first purchase. And nobody goes right to Urban Outfitters for their first V. You don't do heroin the first time you do drugs. You ease into a V. You get what I call a baby V, just a little dip. You get it at a safe store like the Target or Gap. The third stage, the one I'm personally in right now, of deep V-neck syndrome is judgment. Because as soon as you own a single V-neck, you start to judge every other t-shirt in your closet. You look at them and go, "Oh, crew neck, you're so lazy, so boring. No flair, no flourish. What is that, a half-moon scoop? Oh." I was at Target and I had a stack of t-shirts and my wife said, "Hey, that maroon one's not a V-neck." I threw it from the register like it was a pit viper. I was disgusted at what I'd almost purchased. And if you wear V-necks long enough, when you put a crew neck back on, it feels like it's choking you. Like it's a t-shirt turtleneck, like it's so high on my neck. Stage 4, which is the saddest stage to me, is when you start to make your own V-necks. When you start to cut them out of other shirts. That happens, doesn't it? It's a sad stage. The final stage, stage 5, is when you go all in. You go to American Apparel, and you get one of those V-necks where I can see your diaphragm while we're talking. You know, the collar of your shirt and your belt were never designed to meet. They're supposed to be strangers. If I can tell whether you're an innie or an outie belly button, that's not a t-shirt, that's a vest. And so I write about serious things. I write about stuff like that. I write about things like Jesus jukes. A Jesus juke is a phrase I came up with to describe that moment when you're having a normal conversation and somebody jukes in some Jesus out of nowhere. They just juke him in and you don't see it coming. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. It happens to me all the time on Twitter. I tweet at Jon Acuff and I write about funny things I see. And one day I was at the airport, and in the terminal next to me was a bodybuilder doing push-ups right there on the floor, just cranking them out. Now, clearly, I'm no stranger to the push-up. I work my core relentlessly. But I don't do it in the terminal. I don't do it next to Starbucks and B1. And so I thought, that's interesting. So I started to tweet about that. And people started to say funny things back to me, things like twit pic or it didn't happen. We want photo evidence. Now, one of the rules I live my life by is you don't take secret photos of bodybuilders. That just doesn't work out well for anyone. So that's a free one today. Write that down. So I didn't take a photo, but I did write some funny things. And then out of nowhere, somebody said, don't you wish we were all that disciplined about our Bible reading? Wah, wah. And that's what a Jesus juke is. It's the Christian version of the Debbie Downer moment. Or I went to the Conan O'Brien live tour when he was touring the country playing music, and I tweeted, it's packed, it's sold out, there's so many people here. And somebody said, if we gave away free tickets to a Jesus concert, no one would come. Wah, wah. And I don't even know what a Jesus concert is. Like, is he part of the band? Is he in that fishbowl we put drummers? Because you know he played just the right amount of cowbell. He's Jesus. And I promise this happened to you on Super Bowl Sunday. If on Super Bowl Sunday your Facebook status message was, I'm so excited about the big game, one of your friends responded with, don't you wish we were all that excited about church on Sunday? Wah, wah. And don't confuse a juke with a rebuke. A rebuke is done in love and causes change. A juke is done in pride and causes shame. They're very different things. And so that's the kind of stuff I like to write about and think about as we look at culture and faith and the Bible and where they all kind of collide. And today, they asked me to talk a little about the Sermon on the Mount because you're right there in the middle of that series. And I was excited with the passages that I got to speak on today. It's in Matthew 7. If you've got your Bible, you can turn there. It's in Matthew 7, 7 through 12. I just want to go ahead and read those just in case you don't have your Bible with you today. So here's what it says. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. For he who seeks finds. And to him who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Now, as I read that and kind of studied that, I was struck by a weird thought. Why did Jesus even have to say that? Why did he have to teach us how to ask? Why did he have to teach us how to seek and receive? You know, I took my daughters, I have two daughters, one's about to be 6 and one's 8, and we went to the American Girl doll store, which is like Mecca for little girls. And I didn't have to teach them to ask for things when we were in that store. Like, they knew that. They understood how to ask. They got that. So why does Jesus even have to teach us, hey, you need to ask? I love to give you stuff. If a father would do this, imagine what I'll do. Why does he even have to address that? I think he has to address it because often we don't ask. Instead, we try to fix. We're so tempted to fix our situations. Whether the world throws us a curveball or we make a mistake and find ourselves in a bad position, our first inclination is to try to fix it. And there's a great picture of that and some great overlap with the Prodigal Son Story. It's one of my favorite stories. It's probably the story in the Bible I've read the most because I identify with it. And you know that story. Everybody knows that story. A young son says to his dad, I want my inheritance right now, which is essentially saying, I wish you were dead. And he gets his money and he runs off to the Jersey Shore and he fist pumps that night away. That's not a direct translation. That's the message. Don't look that up in King James. I'm pretty sure that wasn't it. But that's what happens. Then he comes home. And what's the first thing he does when he finds himself there? Because he runs out of money. Life catches up with him. And I want to look at that for a second in relation to the Sermon on the Mount. It's Luke 15. And so in Luke 15:13, it says, not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So is the next thing he does ask for help? Does he knock? Does he seek? Does he go back to the Father in that moment? Well, let's look at the verse. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He tried to fix the situation. His first inclination wasn't to go to God. And that's usually not my first inclination either, if I'm honest. I was a mess in college. Freshman year, I got rejected from every fraternity, and I should have. I was a jerk. My grades were horrible. I got a 2.4, and they told my parents if I didn't end up with a 3.0 for the year, I was going to lose all the scholarships I had. My dad's a pastor, so I had a handful of scholarships. And so that winter, I created kind of this fake version of me, this robot perfect version. And the next semester, I got a 4.0. It was the opposite of my first experience, and I tried to fix the situation. And I skated in and got a 3.01, but that summer, I just melted down. I tried to be perfect the whole semester, and it worked for a minute. That fix worked, but eventually it broke down. And that's our first inclination, is to try to fix our situations ourselves. What does the prodigal son do after that? It says in verse 17, when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired men have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I'll set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men. So he got up and went to his father. He tries to fix it again. When the first plan, where the pig situation with a stranger doesn't work out, he comes up with a new plan. He returns home with a new fix, with a new plan. And that's so easy for us to do. And part of the reason it's easy is that culture tells you you can fix yourself, or it tells you that other people can fix you. Like in the movie Jerry Maguire, for instance. Favorite scene in that movie, Tom Cruise runs in at the end, and he runs in every movie he's in. He always has that Tom Cruise like sheen of like glisten. He runs in, he says to Renee Zellweger, you complete me. Oh, that is adorable. I mean, it's a lie, but it's an adorable lie. There's no boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife who is going to complete you. You want to wreck your marriage in a few years? Walk down the aisle with that expectation. Baby, if you could complete me and like just fill all the holes I have in my life by like Thursday, that would be awesome. Thanks. It doesn't work. I love my wife. We've been married for 10 years. She's amazing, but she's not my savior. That role was already filled. But movies tell us somebody will fix you. Or music, Coldplay song, I will fix you. I will fix you. Again, Chris Martin, amazing songwriter, but he's not going to be able to fix you. I've seen him. He's like 88 pounds soaking wet. I can take Chris Martin. He's very sad. He's always walking on the beach in hoodies in the rain, and it was yellow. He's not going to fix you, but we start to believe that because culture tells us that's possible. And sometimes church gets into the mix, especially when we do things like safe sins. Have you ever been in a small group or a dorm group where people confess safe sins? They go, I got to be honest tonight. I got to be authentic and transparent. Words we love. Ooh, I got to get this off my chest. Like ODB in the Wu-Tang Clan, I got to give it to you raw. And you'll lean in and think, what's he going to say? He goes, I've been reading my Bible every day. Oh, sinner, so filthy. And the person next to him catches the safe sin virus, and he goes, yeah, I've got to be honest too. I haven't been journaling every morning during my quiet time. 2 of you in the same room. I can feel it on my body. And I heard a pastor once say, yeah, because Jesus journaled a lot, didn't he? You ever stop to think about that? Jesus' 2 favorite activities, walk on water and journal. Just get a cup of coffee, sit by the Sea of Galilee, and journal. Oh, moleskin notebook. He loved to journal. But if you're in that small group and you've got a big, gross, neon Christian sin, you can't follow not journaling enough guy. You can't. Like if I was in the 9th grade and I was in that small group, here's what that situation would look like for me. Okay, I'm in the 9th grade. I live in Massachusetts at the time. You didn't journal this weekend. What did I do? Oh, that's right. So it was snowing, and I told my parents I was going to go sledding, but instead I went to the dump to look through trash for porn. Oh, and I broke into some bulldozers also looking for porn. But back to Bible guy, we should really pray for him. Hedge of protection. You can't be porn guy after Bible guy. You can't follow I didn't read much Bible this weekend with I looked at so much porn. So what do you do in that moment? You stuff it down. You hide it. You start to use the Christian F word. Fine. Hey, how's class going? Fine. How's school? Fine. How are your friends? Fine, fine, fine. And you become this plastic, fantastic Christian. And you think it's up to you to fix things. And that didn't start with us. We inherited that. Adam and Eve, what's the first thing they do when they realized they've made a mistake? They hide and they try to fix the situation. They make clothes. As if maybe God wouldn't notice. Like he'd walk into the cool of the day and go, something's different about you. Oh, this, yeah, fig is the new black. It's just, something I want to do. Naked was so 2000 and late. We're fixers. The prodigal son was a fixer. And we try to fix things when we find ourselves in that position. And I saw this happen once in a way I've never been able to forget. And it happened to me when I was in the second grade. And I promise you in that moment, I didn't think, someday I'll preach about this. Like I wasn't a weird 8-year-old that said, I see sermons. But it happened, and I haven't been able to shake this memory. And it happened at Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know if you've been to Chuck E. Cheese lately, but when I was a kid, Chuck E. Cheese was the jam. For one thing, they had skee ball. Anybody here ever play skee ball? It's great. I thought it would be kind of fun if you did a skee ball league night. Like if you and your friends made shirts like a bowling league and just showed up there every Tuesday night, got some tokens, like, pardon me kids, pardon me ma'am, league night, skee ball. That'd either be awesome or creepy or a medley of both. But looking back on skee ball as an adult, it's not the greatest game. Because essentially what you say is, hey, 4-year-old, come here. Here's an 8-pound solid wooden ball. Any other day of the year you touch an object like this, I'm probably going to spank you. Today on Chuck E. Cheese Day, I just want you to whip it. Throw it as hard as you can. We got 4-inch nets on either side. It'll be fine. What could possibly go wrong? Here's some sugar. So maybe skee ball isn't the greatest thing, but what was the condiment bar. They had this ice cream and hot dog fixing bar that stretched for like a second grade mile. It was majestic. And I don't know about your childhood, but growing up, I didn't have a whole lot of direct access to sprinkles. Like very rarely would my parents say, hey, John, come here. Here's a big bowl of sprinkles. You do whatever the little man inside wants. Because they knew what the little man inside wanted was sprinkles. But on Chuck E. Cheese Day, sprinkle distribution was in my hands. I controlled sprinkle destiny. So it was with great joy that I would approach that condiment bar with my bowl of soft serve ice cream. And I was there one day, and there was a 5th grader from another birthday party next to me, and he was the first in line. And he took his bowl up to that line, and he went to the first dispenser, and he pressed down as hard as he could, and out came mustard. He was at the wrong end of the line. He was at the hot dog end of the line. Epic fail. But it was okay because right away a Chuck E. Cheese employee came over and said, hey, it's all right. Here you go. Here's a new bowl. Here's a new bowl of ice cream. And I'll never forget his face because he looked down at his bowl and he looked up at the new bowl and he was so embarrassed and ashamed at having failed, at having messed up. They said, nah, it's okay. I'll just stir it in. And so he started to stir it in as if maybe he could fix it. And he just kept stirring as if maybe if he stirred hard enough and long enough, he wouldn't taste the mustard. But you know that's not going to happen. Mustard's not a shy condiment. Mustard's like, boom, I'm mustard. I'm bright and I'm yellow and I'm powerful. But he just kept stirring. And what was bright yellow mustard and bright white ice cream became this kind of pale yellow emo mush. It was like a bowl of Counting Crows songs. It was very depressing. And then he took his bowl and he walked back to his table, presumably to choke down some mustard-flavored ice cream. Now, I don't know about your lives, but I've put worse things in my bowl than mustard. I've made some big mistakes. I've got like D batteries and motor oil and like a dead bird in my bowl. And for the longest time, I thought faith and God and Christianity was just a different set of tools to stir with, but it was still up to me. Prayer, fellowship, be relevant, community, stir, 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 going through seasons, stir, stir, stir. But it was still on me. But about 6 years ago, I came to a place where I just couldn't stir anymore. It's an exhausting way to live. And I realized I couldn't fix me with me. And when I brought my broken bowl to Christ, I learned a secret. And it shouldn't have been a secret. My dad's a pastor. I grew up in the church. But it felt like a secret. Do you know what it is? Christ came for the broken bowls. That's who he's here for. Like I knew he didn't come for the perfect people. I got nobody could be perfect, but I always felt like God came for the good people, like they got to ride on the inside of the bus to heaven, I had to cling to the outside kind of, like cicada style. That's a topical joke I can't use in a year, so I'm gonna do it now. But I thought I had to cling to the outside, which probably says something about my understanding of faith. that I believe going to heaven involves a public bus ride. Have you ever been on a public bus and thought, this is a lot like heaven? This really, or ridden a Greyhound and thought, we use the bathroom 3 feet from where I sit? Oh, that's heavenly. So I probably need to unpack that with my counselor. But that's what I thought. But the more I bumped into the Bible, the more I bumped into the gospel, the harder it was to believe that about God. We see those in the verses on the Sermon on the Mount. Ask and you'll receive. If your Father's this good, imagine how good I am. Seek and you'll find. Ask, ask, ask. And we see that in the Prodigal Son story too. He comes home with a fix. He comes home with a plan. And what does the Father meet him with? With a party. He gets a party instead. You know, when we find ourselves in a difficult situation, when we pick the wrong major, like I remember feeling that in college, like I had inherited a major. Have you ever felt like that, where somebody's told you your entire life, you'd be a great lawyer, you'd be a great lawyer, you'd be a great lawyer, and then junior year, you go, I don't want to go to law school. I really don't. I'm in the wrong major. Or people put all this pressure on college. They go, these are the best years of your life. And then around sophomore, you go, this isn't feeling best yet. Is there something else I'm supposed to do? Because all the brochures about college, everybody's throwing Frisbee on the quad, has really beautiful teeth, and riding double bikes. And if that hasn't been your college experience, you start to go, what's wrong? This doesn't feel right. I need to fix this. And the prodigal son came home with a fix, but he had to let go of that plan in order to receive the party. And in his greatest moment of clarity, what says he came to his senses, the party wasn't even on the top 10 list of things that might happen when he got home. So wherever you're sitting right now, if you're tempted to fix, God's going to do something completely different, completely wonderful. And the challenge of those moments of seeking and asking is that sometimes it feels like God's quiet when we seek, that we ask and we don't hear him respond. But that's what I love about the prodigal son story. I noticed something I'd never seen before in the probably 500 times I've read it. Do you know what the father says to the younger son? God, who represents the Father. Do you know what he says the entire story to him? Nothing. The Father doesn't speak to the Son one time in the story. When he asks for his money, he gives it to him. He doesn't say a word. When he comes home, he doesn't talk to him. We read that he does, but he doesn't. He embraces them, and then it says, but the Father said to his servants. He talks to the servants. When God's quiet, when we seek and we don't find or we don't hear a response back, we often think we're doing it wrong. He's disappointed. He's far away. We're a failure. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it? What if, like in this story, he's embracing us and he's quiet because he's too busy planning a party for us? Can you imagine a God like that? That's the kind of God that says, seek, ask, I'll give it to you. That's the kind of God I want. That's the kind of God we have. Who fixes a problem with a party? I got caught shoplifting when I was in the 9th grade on the way to a youth group leaders meeting because I was one of the leaders of the youth group. And when they called my dad, the pastor of the town, he thought they were calling to sell tickets to the police ball, which I think they stopped doing in like the 1920s. Like he thought they were calling about a sock hop. And I don't remember that day that clearly, but I'm almost positive when he picked me up from the police station, there wasn't a party when I got home. I'm pretty sure that's not how that experience went down. Who fixes a problem with a party? God does. Who invites us to ask? God does. So as you're in a difficult situation, whether it's something you've put yourself into or the world has put you in a corner, fight that temptation to fix it. That's what our first desire is, to fix it. Don't try to fix it. Ask instead. Ask instead, because that's what God is giving us permission to, giving us an order to ask. I'm a loving Father. I want to give you this. I like to throw parties. I can't imagine a God like that, but that's the God we have. And that's my hope for you and my hope for me, is that when we're in those situations, we'll fight the temptation to fix and we'll instead ask. Let's pray.